Life can change very, very fast, for better or for worse. The tale of Marilyn Monroe. Just read this book by Barbara Lemming. Did some research on Marilyn. Welcome in, much love, Trav here. Inspiring story, cautionary tale as well. This is a person who came from nothing and rose extremely fast and had somewhat of a tragic end that I want to share with you because, for one, I read it and it's real interesting and there's a lot to learn from this. And also particular because I share a lot of inspirational stories. My own life is meant to be that way, but it helps to know how badly things can go so that we can try to avoid that stuff. And in this case, quick preview to the ending is, man, alcohol and drugs can be your worst enemy. And we need to be careful about what we try to avoid because we can end up right there as Marilyn ended up in the same spot as her mother. So if you don't know Marilyn Monroe, well, let me give you the quick story of her life. From Barbara. She was born into a very tough childhood. Her father wasn't around, never in her life. Don't think she ever found out who it was. And her mother was insane, clinically insane, and spent a lot of time in institutions. Marilyn didn't even know that the red-haired woman was her mother. So she thinks her mother tried to suffocate her in the crib at one point, and she ends up in a series of foster homes where she's sexually abused, ends up in an orphanage. But there's one woman in her life who believes she could be a movie star, and she latches onto that dream. And at the orphanage, every night before going to sleep, she goes to the window where she can see, this is powerful, she can see, not the Hollywood sign, but one of the studio signs, and looks at it every night. I think that's important. You want something, think about it every night. You want a dream, think about it every night. So, war breaks out. She ends up getting married off to some dude. She ends up working on an assembly line. And then, eventually, she gets discovered by a photographer. Changes her name from Norma Jean Baker to Marilyn Monroe, and is able to parlay that into starting to get some very small movie parts. She meets some people in the industry. At this time, the way it works for a female actress to get in there is you work the party scene, you hook up with people and try to get help from them. So she meets some powerful people, Elia Kazan, Arthur Miller. And one of the interesting things is about how she picks her husband here. She divorced the first one. That was kind of random. That was just a convenience marriage. Second one's Joe DiMaggio. Third one's Arthur Miller. So in this stage of her life, everyone wants something from her. Mostly it's sex. And Arthur has that opportunity, but he's got a wife and kids on the East Coast, and that doesn't stop most people, but he considers himself a man of conscience, and he ends up instead going to the airport and leaving and not coming back. And she kind of fixated on him for that because Hollywood's so slimy. It's like, here's one guy who actually has morals, so she kind of obsessed over him for that reason, and 4 years later they end up getting married. Also, with Arthur, and there's lots of random lessons in here. Arthur was like involved in some communist writing groups. This is during McCarthyism, and they came after him. And unlike almost everyone else, he refused to name names, which was, they could potentially try to destroy his career. And Marilyn stood by his side at this time, but it was like almost better for him to not name names because it upheld his brand, his image as, I'm a man of morals and you can trust me. And that's what makes husband material, is like, if you start off by cheating, it's probably going to end with cheating. If you start off with, hey, sorry, I've got a wife and kids, maybe you can come back to it later. So that's pretty interesting how that relationship works. Between when she meets Arthur Miller and later moves to New York and marries him, she blasts off a little bit. Now, it definitely wasn't overnight because she was working on this for a decade, but all of a sudden she's a star. She meets the right couple people and gets a couple star billing roles and has a smash hit in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, which you can check out on YouTube. It's pretty funny. She has this character, and her persona, she's sexual, but she's fun, she's free. America at this time is very puritanical, repressed. Still is, but less so. And we actually have her to credit for it. She plays kind of, not really a dumb blonde, but a ditzy blonde. And that's kind of her character, Marilyn Monroe, that she starts. From here, she really wants to be a serious actress because she's concerned that once her looks go, like when she gets older or 40, that she's just going to get dumped. And she has this fear of being left because of the way her childhood works. So she goes around a lot. And, that's why she ends up divorcing so much. That's why her shit's so unstable. One of the reasons why, at least. So she moves to New York and starts studying method acting. Famous Heath Ledger, as well, was a method actor for the Joker. It means kind of living your roles. It's some psychological weird. It's kind of weird to me. Because you hear about people dying from this, but there's a lot of method actors who didn't kill themselves. So, what happens? She marries Miller, has a bunch of contract disputes and so on, and then they get married. They go off to England to shoot a film together. And this is where shit goes from good to bad real fast. And it's another thing where it's like it didn't happen overnight because she is using a lot of drugs during this point, like barbiturates to get to sleep. She's using, I'll set the book down here. Well, let's take the book with us. I'm going to show you some pictures. Methamphetamines, or amphetamines rather, to wake up, and drinking a lot of alcohol. And when she heads off to England, it gets worse. All of a sudden, and during this time, she has her demons, she has her issues. She's actually scared of getting in front of the camera because of the pressure of it all. She starts to drink a lot more. She starts to drug herself a lot more. And also, before she even met Miller and Kazan, she had just tried to kill herself. So she had a history of this, and throughout, of people finding her in time. But basically, shit gets out of control real fast to the point where she can't work very much at all. Throughout her last couple films, she calls in sick 4 days for every 5 and is just drugged up the entire time. And really, she starts to lose it. There's some instances where her behavior gets real weird and her brain isn't functioning as it should. So things go from nobody to the superstar position, then from the superstar position to she gets fired from her last movie and lost her marriage and has massive addiction problems, and suddenly her life is really fucking bleak and she takes it. So it's a cautionary tale and it's an inspirational tale. And the inspiration is she worked really hard for that and she dreamed for it for a long time. She had her acting coaches, acting classes. It said in here that at one point she's spending more than half of her money on acting, dancing, singing lessons. Think about that for a minute. What percentage of your money are you spending on skills? I bet you it's less than half for most of us. So that's when she wasn't being paid that much. That was kind of before her breakout finished. So she worked real hard and she dreamed about it every single night to get there. But she didn't have the right parental figure, I believe. She ended up modeling after her mom and followed down the same path of drugs and alcohol. And that shit is not your friend. Some people don't have a problem with it, but a lot of people do. And you have to be very, very careful. And drinking and drugs can turn shit from good to bad real fast. Lose your career, lose your family, lose your respect, and then at that point, it's almost fair to just exit. So it was her decision, right? So, and we should respect it, I think. I mean, I've had friends do the same, and I understand why. I try not to be mad at them. Oh, let me show you some of these pictures here. Marilyn, I recommend checking her out on YouTube. She's an epic actress with some serious skills. Pictures here. Okay, I'll take you through the pics. Okay, we've got baby. She's starting off one of her first connections at Hollywood. We got her with some babies. She's publicity shot. Elia Kazan. Her and her dramatic coach. First picture, she is star billing. DiMaggio. Daryl Zanuck. Here's her. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. DiMaggio. Performing for U.S. troops in Korea. Her famous skirt blowing scene. She gets divorced. Actors Studio up here. When she moves to New York, Manhattan. And then she has a one-night stand with JFK, Frank Sinatra. You can just tell, when things go bad, they go bad quick. Her last couple movies, she's just so fucked up. But she does win a Best Actress in Europe, finally, for Some Like It Hot. One of the things that she wanted was respect. She didn't want people to see her as just some dumb blonde. She wanted to be a real actress. And I think she made that happen. She did live a lot of her dreams, but she lost it all, and you have to be careful. It's a cautionary tale, so. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about Marilyn. Go check her out on YouTube. She's real cool. And you have any other cautionary tales or stories of things changing from bad to good and then back real quick, I'll check it out. So again, it's good to know what can go wrong so that we don't have to follow that. As far as alcoholism and drug use goes, to me it seems that it's honestly maybe more about education than about genetics, where if you know, then you're much less likely to engage. It's like Donald Trump and his brother, Freddie. Freddie died of alcoholism, and Trump never ever drank anything. Same genes pretty much, but Donald had the education that Freddie did not, so it's got to spread stories like this to protect people. It's like Genghis Khan's sons. Genghis Khan's sons were all alcoholics because they finally had access to wine, where before then they really didn't have access to much alcohol at all. But then down the descent, the next generation had it figured out a little bit better. The genes didn't change, just the education changed. So that's why it's worth sharing stories like this. R.I.P. Marilyn. You were good. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. Let me know what you think in the comments. Much love. Peace.